Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's 5:30. This is the December Budget Committee meeting for the City of Kankakee. Thank you for being here. We will proceed. The first item on our agenda, I have the sign-in sheet, by the way, so we'll do that. I have that record. The first item is public comment. Is there any public comment here tonight? This is the only portion of the meeting where public comment's accepted. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to roll call. Alderwoman Malone Marshall. Alderman O'Brien here. Alderman Singa.
Present.
Alderman Marzak.
Present.
Alderman Navarez. Here. Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
And Alderman Jones.
Present.
We do have a quorum. We don't have presentations or old business. We have a few items under new business. The first is consideration of the October and November Budget Committee meeting minutes, which are in our packet. Does anyone have questions, changes, corrections on the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So,
Motion by Alderman Navarez, second by Alderman Marzak. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay, thank you. Next item is a review of the November financial statement. Comptroller Rogers, would you please walk us through that? Thank you.
So there really isn't anything of note this time. We will walk through the individual amounts. Taxes, of course.
could you use your mic, please?
Sorry. Taxes, we're sitting at 96%. We received our fourth payment in October. The final payment has posted. It was dated 12/3. I have not gotten those in. They won't show up until the December. So because we've received 100% of the taxes, that first section is going to continue to be higher than where budget says it should be because we've already collected 100% of the largest part of the revenues. Licenses are running a little low, but that's only because they come due at the end of the fiscal year. So it's nothing to be concerned with. Our other section there of fees, we're running right around where we should be as far as budget says. Grants is going to continue out the year looking very healthy because of that grant that we got for Riverwalk. It was not included in our budgeted figures last year, and that was a significant amount to come through. Service charges running fairly close to where we should be. Fines are looking much better this year. Again, part of that is because code now has more people out there doing the inspections and are able to issue those fines. So if we go to page 3, the general fund revenues are sitting at 67%, which is right in line where we'd expect to be, considering that we've collected so much of the taxes already. If we flip up to the next section, the expenses, salaries pretty much across the board are running exactly where we'd want them to be for this time of year. And we have, yes.
Paula, could we back up to page 3 for a minute, please?
Sure.
Under video licensing 390, it says 3% there. Is we not collecting that, or?
That video licensing is an annual thing. There are some minor amounts that come in throughout the year, but there's an annual payment that usually comes in after April.
Okay.
So we won't see that usually until after the audit.
Okay, thank
To
you.
get those actual figures.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
On page 2, item 385, can you explain to me DUI equipment fines, please?
Which one?
What are we asking?
Like, I don't understand DUI equipment fines.
Like, Alderman, you mean like what makes that up? Okay. Chief, you want to?
Which line item you on?
Bottom of page
Page three.
2,
Page 2.
385.
Or page 2, 385.
We had that question years ago, and I don't honestly remember the answer of exactly what it is. In the revenues?
Okay. UI equipment fines. The only thing I can think of is the fines that we get from the DUIs. We do get like sometimes tow revenues. There are, the tickets. That's the only thing I can think of, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up too. I'm not sure what that's from, honestly.
We can always get back to you too about that. Some of these are, codes that we've used for years and years, and we all process them as they're given to us from the PD, and you do your job and you move along, but we can definitely get that detail for you.
I mean, I don't recall listing anything on my line items is in that category, so I'm not sure.
I don't think I've seen it.
Maybe I did.
It's been on there the entire time I've been here. It's never a large amount, and when we do receive some of the funds, it seems like the way it looks for the monthly amounts to me, like hundreds of dollars at a time, but then we will have several months we won't have one, so it just kind of comes and goes.
All right, so if we go back up to page 4, the individual departments are running at a good point for where we are in the budget year. Police Fire Commission is lower, but I believe part of that is because those testing costs come in at the end of the year. So again, it's just a timing issue as to when it's going to hit the books. If you flip up to the next page, again, if you look down at the salaries are in a really good range for being halfway through the year. I was going to mention that the only departments left where we have not paid out from the settlements for the contracts that were signed, we still owe a little bit on fire, and we still owe a little bit on police. So those will hit next month in December. And then we do have a 3 pay period month coming up in January, which will bump our percentages slightly then. Page 6, there really isn't anything there. The computers are running lower, but I know Jason waits until the end of the year to order replacements. They put in an amount for emergencies in case people's equipment dies throughout the year. We will spend some of that as we get closer to the end of the year, replacing older models that need to be replaced. Up at the top of the page, on page 7, again, they're running well under where the budgeted percentage is. All of those areas within police are well under the budget amount. The only place, if you pop up to page 8, that is over is going to be the pension, and that's because it's nearly completely paid for the year, because it's based on the taxes.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Sure.
Being under planning, I thought we were going to hire an admin or an assistant. Is that still in the works, or do we know where we're at with that? Or?
Comptroller, do you mind me answering that?
As far as I know, it was in the budget, but I haven't seen that position.
Yeah, I just got a mock job description from Melissa probably about a month ago, and so we're starting to work through that process.
Okay.
I kind of got caught up here in the holidays, but that is still the plan.
Okay, so maybe sometime in the spring we'll look at
I would
filling, do you
think, very early spring, potentially.
Thank you.
Melissa also wanted to hold off a little bit on that. She there's still desire for that, but with whatever she has on her plate right now and some stuff with the software tile and everything, she said right now she needs time to do her work and not training for a new person. So
Okay.
she wanted to wait a few months till after the holidays before she had that in her office. So that's part of her decision, too.
Okay, thank you.
Starting with the departments at the bottom of page 8, we go into the fire. They're also running well under budget on their salaries and the individual department totals. Page 9, you can see they're significantly under budget in each of those areas, keeping in mind that that is one of the places that we still have retro pay to come out of. So that will impact that. Page 10, again, fire pension also is close to 100% because it's based on the receipt of those taxes. So that's pretty much been paid for. We just have the final payment to go through. Code is running under budget. Animal control, we had bumped that in the budget because it was a question as to whether or not we were going to sign the contract to contract out on that. So that's why there was more in the budget than what we end up needing there.
Just if I can, a quick update on that. The county did not want to start the annual contract till January 1st, so that's when that'll go in effect.
Yep. Economic development and recovery is running only slightly over budget. That's mainly in the area of salaries, and that does have to do with some of the percentages were changed when we got through the audit with the federal government on the grants. That will be accounted for next year when we do the budget. Neighborhood stabilization, that department has not gotten off the ground. So, of course, at the top of page 13, neighborhood stabilization, that department is completely under budget. City general costs are running where we'd expect them to be, which puts us at a total on the general fund expenditures of 45%, which is a good place to be in line with where we are on our budgeted revenues. Does anybody have questions? Yes.
I do, I'm sorry. If we go back to page 11, the economic development, number 547, their dues and membership, it's over 1,000%.
Which one, Kelly?
Number 547 on page 11. Dues and membership. It looks like they were budgeted for $365, but they've paid out $4,280.
Yeah, I can take a look at the detail and tell you what's in there.
Okay.
There is a possibility that something's been coded incorrectly, so I will look at that to make sure before the next meeting.
Thank you.
Also, if I could add, a lot of this too was back to what Paula just said a couple moments ago, that the Barbie and some of the stuff at ECDA has had a change with what can be covered percentage-wise and what can't. And some of that wording we got after the budget was established. So we feel we have a very similar philosophy that if that is your new normal, you have to book it where it needs to go so that you can set that budget properly for the next year. So absolutely, I agree with Paula to go back and look and make sure nothing's been miscoded, but also certainly know what she said is true, that we did have some major changes.
Okay, thank you.
So unless anybody has questions on the revenues and expenditures, we'll flip up to the cash page with the cash balances. The biggest difference here on the cash balances, we had that debt service payment for both of the POBs come out this month. So our bond account went down significantly. But if you look at Illinois funds, we actually had a really good collection month with all of those taxes that came in from the state at $1.5 million. So even though our cash position has gone down, it really wasn't in operating areas. It was money that had been set aside to make those debt service payments for the 2 POBs. And that will be gearing up some now because we have the 2024 and the 2025. We had a couple of years where they weren't coming due, and now we'll start having regular payments on them of more than just interest. It'll include principal. And then the last page of this is the ARPA. As you're well aware, all of these monies have been ear tagged. It's just a matter of spending it down. The main reason I want to make sure that we look at this every month is 12 months is what we have to spend what's left in those monies. And although that seems like a really long time, it will go by in the blink of an eye. So we need to keep track of those areas where we still have to get those initiatives going and get those monies dispersed before by December of 2026.
Where does District 111 stand with the youth empowerment?
We haven't had that discussion since the last budget meeting, so that's something that I got to get with the Dr. Lance on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Comptroller. Does anyone else have questions on the monthly financial statement review? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next item under new business, which is the review of the tax levy for fiscal year 2027. Comptroller Rogers, would you like to walk us through that document?
Walk us through that. So what we were tasked with doing this year, we wanted to again come back with a lower tax rate for our individual taxpayers. Luckily, the EAV cooperated, and we had a wonderful increase from last year on the EAV. So again, we were able to lower that property tax rate and bring it to the lowest since 2007, Mayor. I believe that's what you had referenced. And in the process, we still had 2.5% more available to us, in most of it in the area of corporate operating. We had a 2.9% increase in the amount of funds that are going to be available there. The one thing that we do have to look at before budget comes are the pension amounts. We came back with the estimate that we had available at hand. That is probably an area where we're going to have to come up with more money to cover that. But we don't know any of that until we get closer to the finalized amount. And we don't know what the EAV will do between now and then. Hopefully it cooperates and goes up farther. We've had a lot of discussions that our EAV increase is coming out of the right places. It's not necessarily the value of existing structures, but it's new growth, and that new growth adds to the tax rolls without costing the individual homeowners more money. So we're definitely in the right place economically right now with the way EAV is building. We have no guarantee between now and April, when they get ready to set those amounts, what the EAV will do once it's finalized. It could end up being higher. It could end up being lower. When I was looking at the history, I was going to say that I was comfortable thinking it was going to go up, because since I've been here, it has. But we have had some years where it actually went down. So that's another reason for us to be conservative and not cut ourselves to the bone when we're trying to make those cuts. If we take a look at the debt service, again, those amounts are going to be increasing for the 2 bond issuances, the pension bonds. That was something that we expected, and the home rule sales tax covers more and more of that. So this year, we're projecting to abate almost $8 million in the amounts for the bonds that are due, the majority of which is those pension obligation bonds. Does that make sense?
Do you want to go into details on the abatements if you turn to page 3, just so they can see that? The sheet titled, the third sheet in on the levy packet, property tax abatements and levy. You all have been here long enough now to remember, we do those abatements every spring. We tell the county clerk's office, which ones we have other funds for. The first one is for TIF 8, which we've had for a long, long time, as long as I've been here. And then the second one is for ESU, which is a standard amount of one of the bonds we weren't able to refi many years ago. We still have ESU pay that amount, so that offsets it then to the bond fund. And then exactly what Paula said is that the 2 large ones are obviously there in that third column, the POBs, which we offset by our 2% sales tax, coming up with that just shy $7.86 million number, which she just mentioned was just shy of 8.
And then the next page is the EAV that was given to us the 10th of November. Fingers crossed that it stays in the position that helps us and ends up higher, not lower. We probably don't need to go over the individual ordinances. I will mention that starting with the page that says 2025 property tax levy detail, it is a rough estimation of what the budget will be, given that we're only halfway through the year and we're guesstimating what those increases are. I did go through and try to come up with the largest increases that I was aware of, so that we would be covering at least salary, where we expect that to move. Some of the contracts that we've already signed for the next year, liability insurance, workers' comp, those type things, we had those figures. But a lot of this is really just a rough guesstimation at this point. We're just not far enough into the year to be able to make good guesses. So that being said, we were estimating to be able to have $1 million out of the levy proposal that was being geared towards that corporate fund. And that was to cover some specific initiatives, not quite as much on capital this year because we did have the bond issuance to cover those capital items in both areas, ESU and the city. So a big chunk of these initiatives are operating revenues and expenses.
Okay. Any questions for Comptroller Rogers on the levy? Mayor, city manager, anything you want to add on that?
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Yeah, just a couple things, and we'll probably do this again on Monday. I think it's important to the public, if you've read some we all look at social media, it's there and everything, but if you look at some of the comments, I think it's very key. There's 3 key points I think that you need to express to your constituents when they come forward here. There's a 2.5% levy request, and so people will sit there and say, well, you're asking for 2.5. Well, very typical of a lot of taxing bodies. Some go to the max that they can of 4.99 or bigger numbers. If you look at the last 4 years of what the city has levied, I've averaged that out. It's less than 1%. It's actually 0.725, so it's even less than 0.75% that we have levied over the last 4 years on average. I think that's a key fact that we need to let the residents of Kankakee know, because I saw a lot of comments of they're raising our taxes, they're sticking it to us, we're maxing out as much as we can, and that's the farthest from the truth. It bothers me a little bit, I'll be honest, because it's not what we're doing as a council here, and an administration team. So I'll challenge it with a lot of taxing bodies in all of Kankakee County that are doing less than 0.75% over the last 4 years. So I think that's a key point. As was mentioned by Comptroller Rogers before, tax rates can be manipulated a little bit based on EAV, how you want to get them, but to reduce them is still a big deal. You can look at a lot of tax rates with taxing bodies in Kankakee County, and they don't reduce, they start going the other direction. We're at the lowest tax rate the city has seen since 2007. That's significant. And then the third part I think you need to look at is when that 2.5% basically makes up just a hair under $344,000. On a budget of 35 million plus, to only ask for $344,000 is really minute when you think about it. And I'll use city manager's words when we have our contractual agreements that we have to follow through with. That is 7 unions that have increases in salaries, which we would expect. It also takes into account even the non-union employees that we don't ask them to work at 0.0. We haven't. We've given raises each year. And then we have things like health insurance, workers' comp insurance, general liability insurance. Those are all going up. Just in salaries and insurance alone is probably well over, and if I'm wrong on this, of $700,000 to $800,000 in increases on an annual basis. And we didn't pass that along to the residents. So if you look at city manager and comptroller to the left and right, they sometimes look at me and think, how are we going to pay for some of these things? Because we try to keep things down, but they've got a great plan with some of the initiatives I have. So I think those 3 things you got to talk about, that, current inflation is currently sitting at 3.01. We're asking for less than that. We're asking for basically less than $350,000, even though we still got to make up somewhere before we even talk any of the initiatives that we want to accomplish of $700,000 to $800,000. So we are using the EAV growth to our benefit, and we're passing it along to the residents. I'm not trying to knock other taxing bodies, but there's a lot of taxing bodies that are not doing that. They're taking 100% of the EAV growth and grabbing as much as they can on a tax levy and just putting it on a tax bill, and they'll take as much money as they can get. I'll probably have a bigger statement Monday when we talk, but I'm going to fight back at some of the people out there that are saying that we're taxing spendings to the maximum of our ability. It's exactly the opposite here in Kankakee, at least in my opinion. So I got to throw those 2 cents out.
Thank you, Mayor. On the, you mentioned the average levy increase for the past 4 years, just under like 0.75%, is that right?
It's 0.725%. Less than 0.75%.
And that's in an era of pretty high inflation over the past 4 years, would you say?
Yep. So you could even say it's 1%. It's not even 1%, but if you said it's 1% over the last 4 years, it's not much.
Yeah.
When you've had inflation at, on an average, I think long-term in this last couple of years has been 3.28, but it's been hovering up at 5 and 7 somewhere in there. So we're trying to do as little as I always say, trying to do more with less.
That's remarkable. And I think the key indicator people, the city can only control our own rate, right? We can't control other communities' rates or EAV or things. But so when you say the city's rate is really the best reflection of, is the city going for more or less? Ultimately, to me, that's the best indicator. And as you say, it's the lowest rate at 3.971 since 2007. So that, to me, I think is really an important point there is in terms of, are you going for more or less? That's the best indicator. I think the issue comes down to, it's really confusing. This is a very complicated issue, so people see their real estate tax bill. If it goes up $1, they say, gosh darn it, you guys are always coming for more. And as you've often pointed out, Mayor, your house is worth a lot more today than it was 3-4 years ago, which drives a lot of this. And there's other factors, other taxing bodies as well. So I understand why people are concerned and frustrated in certain instances, but at least it's not driven by the activities of the city of Kankakee. Quite the opposite. We're helping drive down your tax bill in many cases.
And I would interject that I encourage any of you, if you have questions that you can't answer or anything, call our team. Any of us could wake up from a sound sleep and go through a levy speech, and I want you all to be able to do the same exact thing. It is very complex, and some of you understand it beautifully, and some of you probably go home after you leave and go, I thought I got it, and maybe don't want to call anyway, because I want you to be as comfortable with this as I am. I could breathe this stuff, anybody up here could, and it's really important as we work really, really hard on it, and we want not only you to understand, but we also want our residents to understand it. It's really, really important, because it is their tax bill, and we want them to understand it too. So happy to go over it with you at any moment that you need to or want to talk about it.
But I do think that's a good idea to further address some of those issues that have come up and make sure that we do the best we can to explain it so people understand. Thank you.
I'd even add to that, just even recently with our bond rating increasing to the A- level, they look at these facts and figures, and I learned, thought we'd get up quickly 4 years ago. I learned it takes a long time for them they want to see a track record. So if we weren't doing what we were doing, they would not have raised us and put us in the level that they would actually hammer us and, if anything, keep us stable and not raise us up. So even, for a lack of a better analogy, Wall Street's watching what we're doing and saying we're on the right path.
Okay. Anyone else have questions regarding the levy? No? More to come on Monday. Thank you. Thank you, Comptroller Rogers. The two update items, audit and ARPA. Comptroller, do you have updates on those, please?
Well, we kind of went through the ARPA.
We did.
I apologize.
No.
Run right through. And as far as the audit, we are still, as far as I can tell, on track to make our deadline for December 26th. And we will have more information at our next meeting in January.
Okay. Any questions or comments from members of the council? Anything else from the administration? No? Okay, our last meeting of this calendar year. That's quite wild. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all the work that goes with this. Is a important document in the city every year, so thank you for all the work that goes into that. I think we're in a good spot, thanks to the hard work of a lot of people. Comptroller Rogers, City Manager, Mayor, this group here. Thank you, the department heads. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?